Hey everyone, thank y'all for joining me today. I am Empress Torisaun, the Solar Swoon Weaver. Today, I just wanted to dive into some emotional wellness for everyone, not just women, but especially women. Um, Women that's definitely still growing and learning. I wanted to talk about overcoming love that cuts deep. You know, you deserve love. Everyone deserves love that doesn't cause pain. For the sake of being upset. Real love doesn't neglect or abandon just because they are upset, Um, so it shouldn't hurt you physically or emotionally either when they're upset. And everyone's idea of love that cuts could be different, but I wanted to discuss, and it's going to be a short video, but I wanted to go over an example and just, I guess, share one of my examples from my life and discuss how that's tied into childhood and how you was raised during childhood, but really the environment and the amount of emotional support you got as a child. When a child does not have emotional support, it's not just creating someone who might just sit there and cry for a long time without being able to calm themselves down. It might create someone who might break people property because they can't calm down, and because they just was told to shut their emotions up. They were never allowed to practice, as a child should, regulating their emotions. You can't just tell your child to be quiet because they're crying and you're getting annoyed. You can't just tell them, like, if they knock something over, you can't just whoop them without explaining to them, one, why you don't mess up people's property, two, without you're not even showing them emotional regulation techniques. So, like, you're not even setting the foundation of what they're supposed to do. And then trying to de-escalate the situation as an adult, not falling victim to being triggered by your child based on the patience that wasn't given to you as a child. When we don't give our children that patience and that foundation of teaching them how to regulate their emotions, not saying, accept any behavior that they do, but teaching them how to regulate their emotions so that way when they're adults, they're not in relationships or friendships breaking their friends' things or their loved one things because they're mad, or hitting somebody because they're mad, but then regretting it because they really love them, and that it was just when they was mad, they didn't mean it, but then it happens 3 times a year. For some people, it might happen 3 times a month, 3 times a week, or 3 times a day. So that's why I say that's different for everybody. So that's how it relates to childhood. But I would guess an example would be, you love somebody so much, whatever the dynamic of the relationship is, it could be family member. You love somebody so much, but they do that one thing that triggers trauma from childhood or make the trauma come back up, no matter how much you've been working on it, healing through it. Because if you're with them in a close relationship with them, at this point, it's not just you need to work through your triggers. It's what type of relationship do we really have, because love shouldn't hurt. I shouldn't have to accept you breaking my items because you're mad. Even if it happens only, like I said, 3 times a year. It could be the most valuable items. And what am I supposed to do with that? Accept that you love me and forgive you, or otherwise I'm gonna be the evil person. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, that's not okay in the name of love, or just constantly yelling at somebody. And it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't have to be every day. It can just be enough to where it drains you. And that might be, like I said, every other month. Or like I said, only twice a year. But maybe it happens only twice a year, but the effects of it each time it happens last for 2 or 3 months. Because if it's draining you, you know, even if you practice good spiritual hygiene, you practice emotional wellness, if something's traumatic to your nervous system, it can take a year for it to go away. It can take a week for it to go away. It's different. It depends on what your nervous system, at the end of the day, considers more traumatic and how it can process it. So let's say the event only happens again only twice a year. You know, maybe y'all had a screaming match. And again, it happens twice, 3 times a year. But after it happens, it takes y'all as individuals a month to recover. And then it takes an additional 2 to 3 months for the relationship to recover. So by the time the relationship is about doing good again, it happens again. And it's like, that's love that hurts. And y'all can be perfect for each other in between that time, 100%. But it's like, you have to ask yourself, what is this really repeating for you? What cycle do you need to break here in order, the friendship relationship might be able to survive once the cycle is broken and continue, or, because growth can happen and growth can be rocky, growth can be ugly, and it can be just slow. But that depends on you and the person, how much y'all want to put into it before walking away. But if it's not always successful to continue that relationship. If the other person isn't assisting in growth, but let's say even if they are, again, it just comes down to what y'all two are willing to do. They keep going or to part ways. But let's say, again, everything's going great, and then it's a yellow match, or your TV get broke. Let's say last time it was your radio that got broke. And let's say last time maybe it was a year ago. But let's say your nervous system just now finally reset fully a couple of months ago for you to fully deep down trust that person again. And then 3 months later, it happens all over again. So it's like, that's what I'm saying. That's the cycle I'm referring to as far as going back to your childhood. Because I'm going to still use that example. If it's those 2 examples, if it's the screaming, getting yelled at, or your items getting broke, what happened in your childhood that makes you think that's okay to accept that, even if it only happens here and there? It can be because you always had to over-considerate what everybody else was going through. So you have to always ask yourself, because people gaslight you, am I really being sensitive? Am I really just overreacting and I just need to forgive them? Or, you learn over consideration because you saw other people being mistreated, or maybe you was mistreated. So as you grow up, you over considerate for the person, whether, like I said, whatever the dynamic of the relationship, platonic or romantic or a family member. You now overlook the actions that they do, and you over consider, you make an excuse for everything that they do. And it might be logical excuses, but again, at some point, when is enough for you? Like I said at the beginning, you deserve love that doesn't hurt, that doesn't cut, that's not slicing you in the name of love. You don't want a rose vine to wrap around you, around your heart, because it has thorns, right? So why would you do that in a physical sense? This video is getting to 10 minutes. I didn't want it to be this long, but what from your childhood what happened in your childhood that makes you over-consider and over-explain and over-excuse someone else's actions, even if it's hurting you? You might love them, they might love you, but if you can't fix what's hurting you, or if they can't fix that aspect, then you just might have to call it a quits. But at the same time, don't go into the next relationship with the same person, different body, somebody doing the same exact thing again, ask yourself, and it might not be maybe the exact same thing. Maybe they are not breaking your stuff, but maybe they're not giving you the attention that, or affection, whatever, that you really require as an individual. And ask yourself, did you have to fight for attention when you was growing up from the adults, from your caregiver? Because that can play a role too. Was you always yelled at? Did you always witness violence in a home? If you did, it makes it easier for you to excuse your relationship or your friendships actions. It makes it easier to say, well, they was mad and I did do this, blah, blah, blah. So that's why they did that. And next time we'll try to de-escalate the situation by doing this a different way. That's good till it get too so deep, At some point, it's just like, no, that person really don't care for you because they don't know how to care. They think that's still love because that's probably what was done to them. Affection was removed from them because they got in trouble. So they wasn't told I love you, or they wasn't allowed a hug or a kiss because they're in trouble. Removing affection or removing attention. You're in trouble, so no one's going to pay attention to you for the next few days because you made them mad. So now you're giving the silent treatment, or you think it's okay for your partner to give you the silent treatment when they're mad. You can have a moment to take away, to reduce some of the tension, but it's just communication at the end of the day. You just flat out giving the silent treatment, that's not it. But again, everyone deserves love that does not hurt. And I hope this message finds whoever it was meant to. Bye.